friends, this is Kat and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is my May wrap up. For my May wrap up, I just have a short list of books, so hopefully this video will not take long. May has been a whirlwind. It was the end of the school year for me, and I just found that my headspace for wanting to read wasn't there, especially physical reading, and when the audio, I would zone out. And so not the greatest reading month, but I did have some great reads. Like there was a 5-star read that I can't wait to talk about. So let's go ahead and just jump right on in. So for May, I'm just going to go through the star ratings and then we're going to go that way. So let's start with our 3-star ratings. The first one I have is His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. And this one I've had on my TBR since I started Goodreads. And it is a sci-fi epic, I think sci-fi is what you would call it, or epic fantasy or something like that. But this is like Napoleon, like the Napoleon Wars meets like sea navigation and dragons, and very interesting. I actually really enjoyed reading this book because it was unique, and I haven't really read about the Napoleon Wars, but I found myself kind of learning as I went in a way. So you follow this captain of a ship, and he finds this dragon egg, and when it hatches, the dragon kind of imprints on him, I guess. And from there he becomes a dragon rider, which in this world, they, depending on, I guess, who you ask, it is a very noble thing to do, but also it was considered a really rough lifestyle just because you are basically bonded to the dragon, and you lived a life with other people who were bonded with dragons. And so it's like they were kind of considered a bit rough, I guess, hard to maintain a family, because your life was essentially married to this dragon. So that's kind of like the gist of the book. And the author actually, in the acknowledgments section, really enjoyed the O'Brien books, which are the Master and Commander series that my husband really enjoyed reading. And so I kind of found a little of that inspiration within the book, as well as Jane Austen is what she said that she enjoyed a lot. So you kind of can see elements in there, but for the most part, I did find myself like enjoying it. There were some slow moments in the book. There was maybe a character or two that had some like language within the book, but for the most part, it was clean. I think also, if I'm remembering correctly, the way how the relationship between the man and the dragon definitely resembles a lot like a close relationship, to where I felt like almost a marriage in a way. I don't know, I just felt that through the book. So that was kind of interesting, how that bond was. And so I'm not used to reading fantasy books where there's like the person really creates a bond with a creature in that way. But I mean, there wasn't like anything explicit within it. It was just interesting how like the parallels between a marriage, it seemed like, between the person and the dragon. There were sad moments, and quite honestly, the 3 stars was just the slow moment parts, and it is a very long series. And because it's so long and I have a lot of books that I'm more interested in, this one was kind of like a okay read, if that makes sense. So that's why I did 3-star, because it was great in the moment, but if I really sat and thought on it, it wasn't something that would be super memorable that I wanted to continue. But yes, nothing that I can remember very explicit. That was that book. All right. The next book I'm going to talk about was part of my Read Around the World vlog series, and that is Dragon Fruit. I talked quite a bit about that book. But essentially you have this woman who is exiled from her island because her dad steals a dragon egg and basically uses the dragon egg for her to, to remain alive because she gets poisoned, and the dragon was intended for the princess, and so they're exiled. And basically it's just her trying to right a wrong, and with the dragon egg, anyone who consumes it gets their wish, but at a price. And so you kind of see what that entailed for some of the characters who have made wishes with these eggs and what prices they've paid. Very gruesome in some aspects. So again, all my thoughts are in that video, but that's kind of like the gist of it. So there is that 3-star read. Okay, 3.5 stars goes to the other book in that vlog series, and that is called Vanished. That one's a nonfiction about World War II, and you jump back and forth between the past and the present. This man wants to find what happened to these survivors that jumped out of the plane during World War II in the islands of Micronesia, and kind of like finding out what happened to those survivors, trying to find closure for the families who, suffered from these people not coming home. So they're soldiers, they're in the army, and they were in battle against the Japanese. And so when their plane crashed on Japanese occupied islands, that's when they disappeared. And so you kind of follow the present, how they're uncovering the plane crashes and talking to the natives of the islands and trying to see like if they can find evidence of what happened. And then the past is more of the political side of the war and like the letters you're reading through these soldiers who are writing home, and you kind of follow these families. So all right, but 3.5-star reads. I enjoyed listening to it, and there are some sad moments because again, you're dealing with war, you're dealing with what happens to POWs, prisoners of war, and some of those things were just really hard to read. But I appreciate it was only one chapter for the most part of that book. This was a more, I guess, hopeful book, and there was some humor within the book, not about the war itself, but just the camaraderie with some of the U.S. People. I said army. I think it's like Navy. I'm not sure what branch of the military. Sorry, I'm pretty sure it's Navy. But anyways, that was 3.5 stars. All right, for my 4-star read, I did read The House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne, and this is part of the Winnie the Pooh series. It is the second book in that series. There are just a lot of little short stories about, Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin. They're adorable. But yeah, nothing really much to say except that if you like little short story, cute children's book collections, I think this is a great one. The illustrations were cute. Yeah. So there is that one. All right, now for my 5-star read, and this one is an apologetic book, and I know that's not everyone's favorite. Usually it is not my favorite thing to read, but sometimes I will get in a mood where I would like to kind of read about Christian apologetics. But that book is Toxic Empathy: How Progressives Exploit Christian Compassion by Allie Beth Stuckey. Now, this book, it did challenge the way that I thought about certain things. Some topics I definitely agreed with, and it was interesting to learn about the history of these topics and how they, how it kind of evolved over the years. She basically has like 5 topics that she talks about that are very relevant nowadays. She calls them lies in here. And one of them kind of really hit home for me personally, just because of like my family history. So how she sets up some of these topics is that she'll start with a scenario that is meant to kind of hit at your emotions, I guess. And I think with apologetics in general, there might be situations where not 100% you would agree with something, but you could see where the author was going. So I'm just going to say that right off the bat. There might be topics in here where you are not 100% agreeing with her. But I think we can learn from it. And ultimately, you're going to go to the word, to what Christ says in scripture to be the ultimate authority. So just kind of know that going through the book. But I did say this was a 5-star because my nonfiction 5 stars are when I couldn't put the book down, and I would reread it, I would discuss it. So yeah, I definitely would do that with this book. I will say the time of reading this book was very timely, because I was going through something in the month of May, not particularly on a certain subject in here, but just empathy in general, or toxic empathy in general, because she talks about that. Like, empathy is not a bad thing to have, but what does toxic empathy look like? And how that really kind of spoke to me in the month of May. Empathy, real quick, says the ability to place yourself in another person's shoes with or without having had a similar experience. So that's typically what she means by empathy. But she talks about like how not being ruled by your emotions. That's also biblical too. But she was saying how if we are ruled by emotions, we're highly susceptible to manipulation. And she says examples of toxic empathy is to get us to suppress our opposition to a particular issue or point of view by playing upon our desire to be a good person. And then something else, toxic empathy says we must not only share others' feelings, but we must affirm others' feelings and choices as valid, justified, and good. And anyways, I know I'm just kind of taking little bits and pieces from the book, and you would have to read the whole chapter or the whole paragraph for context, but those were like the little things I highlighted. And anyways, it was a really good discussion with my husband about it. I enjoyed it. I think it'll be a good study. All right, so that was my list of books that I've read. For my Bible reading, I did have the prompt old for my challenge. And so I did pick up A Lineage of Grace by Francine Rivers, and I've read Rahab in this book. And I also did, what's it called? The study questions. And I enjoyed it. I think, again, I wasn't in the right headspace because as I was doing the study questions, it just didn't hit like the first book, like the first book I read from it. The short stories are great. Study questions, I feel like, I don't know, didn't really pertain a lot to me. So I'm just kind of deciding out of all the other studies and nonfictions I have. Maybe this one is just one I can say goodbye to. I've done 2 from this bind up. Nothing bad about it. It's just I think I need something deeper or just something different. And again, nothing bad about this. This could be a really great study guide for someone, just not for me in my season. So I might actually just unhaul the whole bind up and check out some other ones that I have that I've been wanting to get to. So, all right. And I am currently reading a book that for Janet's Christian Fiction Reading Challenge. I'm actually buddy reading a book. Did not finish it yet. So I will talk about that probably my June wrap up. All right, guys, that was my wrap up for May. Have you read any of these books? Let me know. If you have any questions, let me know down below. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in another one real soon. Bye, guys.